Many African countries have introduced lockdowns in order to halt the spread of the coronavirus. But some experts argue that ordinary people have to be involved in choosing the solutions that will work for them. In Africa, most people live from day to day, and a lockdown could be the difference between poverty and starvation. If any form of lockdown is to work, emergency assistance measures are needed. Joining us to discuss more on this is Alistair Wilcox, an African Affairs Analyst. Alistair, when you look at Africa amid this coronavirus pandemic, do you think a lockdown is the answer?
Yeah, thank you, Tenny, for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Lockdown is one of the most effective ways for the curtailing of the coronavirus. It's a global strategy for the curtailing of the coronavirus, because what does lockdown do? Lockdown restrict access of people, restrict people to having access to larger infections from those who are already infected, so that those who are infected are isolated and proper treatment can be given rather than multiplying the infection rate. So lockdown is one of the solutions globally acclaimed as one of the solutions. So Africa cannot be different. So for me, it's one of the solutions. It may not be the entire solution, but lockdown is one of the solutions.
Well, not every country on the continent has imposed a lockdown. For example, Ethiopia says a full lockdown might not be practical due to the size of its population. What other alternatives could countries look at?
Well, a full lockdown in Africa may not be practicable. Even in Nigeria, we've not had full lockdown. Apart from Lagos, Ogun, and the FCT, we don't have full lockdown. If you go to other states, it's partial lockdown. The effectiveness of this is the risk factors are still there. In those areas where there are no full lockdown, which in Africa is practically impossible because it is not a way of life. We are not used to such isolated living. We live among ourselves. We live in clusters. So it is like the Ethiopian is saying. It is absolutely correct. But that does not jettison the fact that you need some kind of restraint of persons from mass gathering, from mass movement, as to curtail. Now, any other factor may be an addendum, addition to the lockdown, because you must first of all have a method of isolation, isolating those who are infected and those who are not infected, and which is what the lockdown tends to achieve. Now, the next strategy would be massive community-based testing, community-based information and testing, because really and truly, the only way to get this virus under control is to test as many population as possible to understand those who have it and isolate them, because if you know those who have it, you must isolate them. So the only possible way is you isolate them, and which lockdown does. The other one is massive community-based enlightenment and testing, which as at now, I don't think any African health infrastructure can support such. For you to go down to the communities, to the villages, to rural areas, to the urban cities, and begin to test everybody. It's not possible, but that is the only practicable solution if you do not want to have a lockdown. But essentially, I do not think any alternative to this kind of lockdown. It might be partial, it might be restrained, but there must be some form of isolation of those who are infected, potential infected, and those who are potentially to be infected if they are allowed to be mixed up.
Yeah, some African countries are moving along the line of a few things that you mentioned there. Like Zimbabwe announced today that it was going to conduct mass testing of, about 33,000 people, actually. So that is a good step in the right direction. But how optimistic are you that Africa can contain the spread of this virus?
Well, there is this resilient spirit in Africa. We are a resilient people. Let's give ourselves some thumbs up for that. Overcoming this, I think it's a fiat accompli we will. If we're able to combat and come out of Ebola, Africa was able to manage Ebola that ravaged so many countries, which is even a more deadly virus than the corona. I think there is hope and optimism that Africa can overcome this. Now, but what I want us to look at critically is some of the therapy that are available in Africa. We may not all depend on the Western orthodox medicine. We must look at our own medical unorthodox medicine, because I understand that
I do apologize. I have to cut you off here. We've unfortunately run out of time. Mr. Alistair Wilcox, African Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa.